The Morning Watch.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM. Welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move. U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, should Jamaican patois be enshrined in Jamaica's new constitution? And in the second watch, Reverend Marie Berbick, recipient of the U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award. For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on Jamaican patois becoming an official language of Jamaica? We ask you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's our quote.
All right, today's I quote says, "The love we give away is the only love we keep." And this one is from Albert Hubbard.
Yeah. I think I grew up in Sunday school singing that song, "Love is something that you give away, and it comes or turns right back to you."
I think I remember that song.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's what this quote is saying in a sense. The first watch will be back after this break.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
The Jamaica Theological Seminary presents the Clive Afric Memorial Lecture, Tuesday, February 18, beginning at 6 p.m. Here, speaker Dr. Carlton Turner discussed the hermeneutical practices that promote wholeness in African Caribbean context. Listen to the lecture on Love 101 FM's social media platforms at 6 p.m. and on Love 101 FM radio at 6:30 p.m. Join live at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, 8 and 14 to 16 West Avenue, Kingston. For more information, visit www.jts.edu.jm.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Toussaint. Now, it's oftentimes said that the official language of Jamaica is English. However, there's a call for the Constitution Reform Committee, CRC, to include Jamaican patois as, and I quote, an official language of communication as the country seeks to sever ties from the British monarchy in its quest to become a republic. What are the issues and implications associated with such a call? Well, to discuss this, we have online Dr. Celia Brown Blake. She holds a PhD in linguistics. She's also Associate Dean in the Faculty of Law at the UWI. And Mrs. Joyce Thompson, retired education officer. She's the project manager of the Bernard Van Leer Foundation, also at the University of the West Indies. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Dylan. Great to be here this morning with you and your listeners.
Great, good to have you. It's a pleasure having both of you with us. Well, let me begin by asking, ladies, why is there a call for patois to be enshrined in the new constitution, and what are your views in that regard? Beginning with you, Dr. Brown Blake.
Thank you. Well, I think that it all lies in the role and purpose of constitutions. A constitution is not just a legal instrument setting out the structure of government,
Mm,
but it tends to give some indication about the broad philosophical principles and direction that underlie a state. And also, you find that constitutions tend to enshrine national symbols. So, the Constitution of Guyana, for example, declares that Guyana is a sovereign democratic state espousing principles of socialism. And it also refers to things like the national flag, the coat of arms, national anthem, and so on. And so, particularly, I think in the context of a Republican constitution that Jamaica is looking to have, as you pointed out, what do we want that Republican constitution to signal about us as a state, as a people? And as you have indicated, a Republican constitution essentially is an act of decolonization. And so I believe what we really should do is to enshrine in our constitution symbols of decolonization, symbols of nationhood and a discrete singular identity as a people. And language, I think, can be an excellent marker for that identity. And I think declaring Jamaican a national language and or an official language in the Constitution, particularly a Republican Constitution, really would be a key symbol of decolonization and a really great marker too of our discrete national identity.
Okay. Mrs. Thompson, your take on that?
There are some questions I'd like to ask about this Republican Constitution as it relates to Jamaica. I understand decolonization, nationhood, and the language, but there are a number of factors we have to consider when we are discussing this matter, whether or not to add Patois as an official language. Now, as Dr. Blake Brown says, there are some benefits. I would add that the cultural identity and pride is one of the main things. It's an integral part of the nation's history, its music, its sports, and daily life.
Mm-hmm.
I think also that it can lead over time to improved educational outcomes. Since many Jamaicans speak Patois as their first language, using it as a bridge to English would make the process easier, and it would increase comprehension and retention.
Mm-hmm. So in essence, you are in favor of the proposal.
But I have some risks that it would face. The risks we would face here are the challenges in standardization. Patois is largely an oral language, which means there is no standardization in the written format. This could cause difficulty, as we would need to create a consistent curriculum for teaching the language, or develop a writing system that everyone will agree on. I also think that there will be potential complications in education. Switching to a bilingual system could delay or hinder proficiency in English if not implemented carefully. We already have low pass rates at our CXC exam English results. It could require a lot of resources for teacher training and curriculum redesign, which could be costly.
Yes. Interesting points you raise in there. I don't know if Dr. Brown Blake would like to respond to any of those.
Thank you. Yes. As far as standardization and a writing system is concerned, the Jamaican language, Patois, has long had a standard writing system that was developed many years ago by the Jamaican Language Unit, which is part of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy at the University of the West Indies. I have to tell you that many persons are trained in this writing system. Many of us are actually literate in this writing system.
Okay.
There are, from as far back as I was a law student, I was asked to do transcriptions of oral text, oral Jamaican language text
Mm-hmm.
in this writing system. And this was requested of me by a student who was studying, was doing research in Jamaica and collecting data from Jamaicans in the field. And he
Yes.
wanted these things transcribed, and I use this system to transcribe those interviews. So there is a standard writing system, and more and more people are learning it. Very many students have competence coming out of the University of West Indies and other universities with competence literacy in this writing system. So there's a developed orthography for it. This notion of Jamaican being an oral language, I think we say that without thinking about how we have used this language. From the time when Jamaican was perceived very much as this oral language, Miss Lou and many other people, novelists and so, were using Jamaican patois in their written work. But I think that we also now need to pay attention in the current day of media, social media, and international communication that takes place in a split second. I don't know if people are very much aware of the extent to which Jamaican is used on the web. So much so that somebody did a PhD thesis on this and wrote a book about this, right? And I also agree that yes, there may be problems in the education system, but here is what I think, Dylan, that explicit recognition of Jamaican in our law is likely to actually better the chances of rolling out and implementing the type of language education policies that will facilitate better teaching and learning of English, and therefore produce genuine bilinguals who actually have mastery of both their native language and English. I think for too long, our education system has really treated with Jamaican as a kind of second cousin to English, pretending almost that Jamaican doesn't really exist. And the education system is very anxious to transition our children to English without allowing them to have mastery of their first language. And the research has shown that this is a sure way to have students not acquire complete competence in either Jamaican or in English. So people should be concerned now about an education system which turns out students who are not proficient in English because of the failure of our education system to implement educational approaches that recognize and validate the first language that we speak in this country.
And as you mentioned, before you respond, Mrs. Thompson, I'm wondering, Dr. Brown Blake, I've heard across the years persons who have the script of patois, Jamaican patois, before them, and they seem to struggle to pronounce the words, even though they say it's an oral language, but just to read it seems to be an issue with many persons. How do you respond to that concern?
So there is a distinction which I think very few people kind of bear in mind between language and the competence that one has in a language, okay, and literacy, which is another skill, which is a skill of learning to read and write using a particular writing system. So there are countries in which people can speak English and you put the paper in front of them and they can't read it. The thing about it is that many of us who are literate, we are literate in English, okay? We can read and write English well, okay? But we haven't learned a writing system and how to read our own language. Once we develop literacy in the orthography that has been around, or another orthography we so desire, then we will become literate. We'll be able to read it just like reading any other language that we learn.
Interesting. Mrs. Thompson, you wanted to respond?
Yes, the standardization that Dr. Blake Brown is talking about. I am yet to see any of the rural schools with any of the written patois. As a matter of fact, even standardization, the word patois, I know it's spelled 3 different ways.
Yes.
Patois, Patwa, and Patwah.
Right there,
She said that the development took place at this university.
Hold that thought, please. I want to hear more from you. We'll be right back.
Do more on the road. Discover a new and convenient way to send money abroad with the GK1 app. Download GK1 from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to send with Western Union today. The time by Grace Kennedy Remittance is
7:15.
Are you looking for modern faucets to transform your home or commercial property? Then Home of Faucets is your place to be. We are located at Shop 42 Leaf Mall, Caledonia Road, Mandeville, Manchester. We also provide free island-wide next-day delivery. Contact us on Instagram at Home of Faucets by telephone at 876-492-4810 or homeoffaucets.com. Home of Faucets, contributing to modern satisfaction. You're invited to listen to Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. We'll give you tips on how to make your money count, how to save, and how to grow your wealth. It's all inside Dollars and Cents, brought to you by BPM Financial Limited, taking you higher. That's Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Get ready to lift your praise this worship Wednesday. Coming your way inside Alive, 1 to 5, February 12, 2025. Packed with wonder, worship, warmth, and spiritual wisdom. Mental Mavericks assemble before the brain testing mental size at 1:45. At 2:15, things already better with Judith Gale, our worship artist of the day. At 3 p.m., find out what's hot, what's new, what's next. Your scoop on entertainment, sports, lifestyle, and more. All this and more will come your way inside Alive 1 to 5 this World of Worship Wednesday, February 12, where all is well with the creative Jesus guy, Darren Mitchell. Let the worship waves wash you over on the family station, Love 101.
Everybody feeling alive. That's the favorite people alive. Get to healing and come on.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and this is the first watch. We are asking, should Jamaican patois be enshrined in the new constitution? In so doing, we have online Mrs. Joyce Thompson, project manager of the Bernard Van Leer Foundation. She's also a retired education officer. And Dr. Celia Brown Blake. She holds a PhD in linguistics and is an associate dean in the Faculty of Law at UWI. Before the break, Mrs. Thompson, I think you're focusing a lot on the standardization aspect.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
And I'm thinking that the standardization relates to parishes. How do we get the same level of understanding in Westmoreland, rural Westmoreland, from how it is said and done in Kingston or in Port Antonio or any other parish? We do not have the same one-on-one way of doing things. We have to consider overall communication. How do we relate to each other? For instance, if we are thinking of international communication, although patois is a rich and vibrant language, it is not widely understood outside of Jamaica.
Are those concerns unique to patois though, Mrs. Thompson, in terms of how people pronounce words and all that?
Patois.
At different parishes in Jamaica.
Is patois.
Is it
unique? It is unique to Jamaica because pardon me?
Some people may argue that also happens with the English language, that persons pronounce certain words differently. Different parts of the world and Jamaica.
But the thing is there is a written form of that word and pronunciation. We speak different, we pronounce things differently from the Americans. We pronounce words differently from the Australians.
Yeah.
We pronounce words differently from New Zealand.
So it happens all over.
But outside of Jamaica, we need an international communication system which is effectively international in terms of relations, particularly in diplomatic and business contexts.
Hearing you loud and clear. Dr. Brown Blake, sure you want to respond to that?
Yes, so I think you established already, Dylan, so I'm not going to deliberate on that, the issue of many varieties of a language being spoken in a particular jurisdiction. So, if you take England, for example, everybody's aware of the various varieties. The people up in the north speaking something else different from the people in the south, and the people in the west speaking something different. So, you have the Yorkshire dialect, you have Cockney, you have all kind of things. But people coalesce around English. That's what they speak in England, notwithstanding the varieties of English that exist. Of course, they have selected something that is called, recognized as a standard variety. Maybe people put that down to the Queen's English, but I don't see any kind of difficulty or hindrance in the context of Jamaica, where just like in any other jurisdictions, there are several varieties of our Jamaican language, and we can select and codify one as the standard, a particular variety as the standard variety. Okay,
Yeah.
for you in those kind of domains where we need a standard to be spoken, to be used. So
Yeah.
I don't really see a difficulty with that. This notion of English and it being an international language and that we really need to learn it. No one is saying that English should not be taught or we shouldn't learn English. That question, I think, almost presupposes monolingualism, that people speak or should speak only one language. And that is far, far from the norm. Many speakers of languages other than English learn English well to function in tertiary institutions which operate in English, or to acquire jobs in jurisdictions where the official language is English. I don't really see any conflict at all in officializing Jamaican and, of course, learning English.
It's not
And-
either, or, it's both and.
Absolutely, and as I said, this concept and of talking about the internationalization of English in terms of us needing to speak it because of its currency globally, it just presupposes that we are a monolingual people and that all we can do is learn one language to the detriment of learning any other language.
Yeah. The proposal is about enshrining it in the new constitution. Dr. Brown Blake, describe for us how would that be done? What would it look like? Is it that you're asking for parts of the constitution to be written in patois?
Okay, so there are a couple of dimensions to that. So I think, for example, we should declare Jamaican as a national and or official language. I also think that we should have language being a basis for non-discrimination in the Constitution. So we have an anti-discrimination clause in the Constitution now. I think we need to add language as a ground on on which discrimination would be outlawed or prescribed. So that is where I would start.
You want to be stated in there clearly.
Yes. So I think also, Dylan, that if we're serious about our language, if we're serious about sending symbols of, signals of decolonization, that we should also have an authoritative version of the Constitution of Jamaica in Jamaican, in the national language.
Authoritative version, you said?
Yes.
What would that look like? Give me an example.
Well, it's a Jamaican language version of the Constitution, but when lawyers talk about an authoritative version, they mean a version that, of course, it's not just, oh, this is a translation and something for us to hold up and say, oh, we have a Jamaican translation of the Constitution, but it has legal value in terms of courts having regard to the language of that Constitution, to interpret the Constitution, to say what it means and how therefore it should be applied to the cases that they adjudicate on, right? So just like in Canada, for example, where both the French and the English version of the Constitution, these versions are authoritative in law. When judges come to apply the Constitution and to interpret its provisions, it is looking at both the French version and the
Sure.
English version and reconciling in their interpretation and
Uh-huh.
therefore their application of the provisions of the Constitution, the meaning.
Yeah.
Okay, how
Yeah.
do what does this Constitution really mean? What does this provision mean? And they look to the two language versions to get the best deal.
Interesting.
How,
Mrs. Thompson, what's your take on that?
yes, I'd like to ask her about the economic impact that this would have on getting our patois at the same as an official language.
Economic impact?
Yes, to be training persons
Oh.
to produce documents,
Mm.
to adapting government forms, to translating material, and retraining civil servants and other categories of workers. If we are going to have an international law, including our patois, do we have to be sure? Don't we have to be sure that all these things are in place, that we can defend them when anything comes up?
Interesting question. Dr. Brown Blake, want to respond?
Well, I think if we have the political will to do this and to consider that it is important for us as a people, both in terms of our national identity and in terms, more substantively, of moving us forward in terms of the development aspect of it, I think that we will commit the funds. It's always a question of political will, in my view.
Mm. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you though, Dr. Brown Blake, and also Mrs. Thompson, how do you respond to those who argue that this whole thing is not a big deal for them? It won't put money in their pocket, food on their table, or gas in their vehicle. What's your response?
That the average person, the average Jamaican who sticks to politics, this kind of superficial politics that we have, will probably say that is no big thing. And that is what will create this problem where we could detract from other important priorities. We do not care what happens as we have what we need to do happening.
So are you also endorsing that sentiment, Mrs. Thompson? That's
What?
not a big deal, not a big deal for
No.
persons in terms of
No, I say it is a big deal because
Okay.
we have to know what we're doing before we go ahead. We have to think how well informed the average person is. We have to be sure that when something is said or done, it is done in a way that everybody will understand.
and benefit. Okay, Dr. Brown Blake, you have the final word.
Well, I don't think we can risk not recognizing our language, both for on the point of the identity and nationhood in this period when we're talking about decolonization and republicanism. I don't think we can not risk recognizing on that basis, and also on the basis of improving our educational output in terms of people's mastery of the languages that we want them to learn. And I should also just point out, that Jamaican is gaining a lot of linguistic currency globally. People are coming here to learn Jamaican, Dylan. You might know some of them.
Yes,
Non-Jamaicans are learning it and using it in virtual communications as far away as West Africa.
Music
Not to
industry,
mention
entertainment
that-
industry generally.
Yes. So there's a whole industry in terms of the economics of language, right? And not to mention, of course, that Jamaican is the language which dominates our music, as Mrs. Thompson said, and our music commands such international attention.
Well said.
We should begin to recognize the jewel that we have in our language.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us this morning. Interesting.
One last
End it there.
one-
Sorry, Mrs. Thompson. Time is up. Have a great day.
Thank you.
We'll
Bye-bye.
watch you return in just a moment.
The time by Jam Bank is
7:30.
Imagine opening a bank account without ever leaving your home. Well, at CIBC Caribbean, we've changed the game. Open a new CIBC savings or checking account completely online using your computer or phone, anywhere, anytime. No need to visit the bank. No waiting in line. Just apply, verify, and sign your documents all online. It's secure, seamless, and 100% digital. Open your new CIBC account by applying online today.
Time is running out. This is your chance to level up. Register now for the CC June 2025 exams with the Overseas Examinations Commission. The deadline is February 21, 2025. No delays, no excuse, just success. Visit www.overseasexams.org.jm to register. Call 876-618-3721 or email help@overseasexams.org.jm. Follow us at Overseas Exams on social media. The Overseas Examinations Commission, Jamaica's examinations hub.
Ready to experience 6 times more freshness in your clothes? Try Downy Scent Beads. Its fragrance is so amazing, you have to sniff it to believe it. Try Downy Scent Beads today. 6 times more freshness versus using detergent alone.
Mama work hard, for real, to be the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 dream bank savings plan, you know. Further my education, and I make mama proud.
wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, Trump administration appeals Maryland judge's ruling blocking birthright citizenship order. Also in the Gleaner, JCF's Domestic Violence Intervention Unit on cross-country tour. In the Observer, over 2,000 now in interviews for jobs in public health sector. And also in the Observer, Cornwall College alleges bias against rural schools after controversial SCQ loss. I guess that's Schools Challenge quiz. And then in Loop News, meet you in court. Opposition protests bill to make Portmore a parish. I mean, interesting stuff there in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your thoughts on Jamaican patois becoming an official language of Jamaica? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. Soon come back.
Love is in the air with Flow this Valentine's. Connect it with Yard and Road, and you put something extra in your cards. Sign up for Yard and Road for only $6,300. Plus GCT, and get a supermarket card valued at $15,000. Perfect for stocking up on ingredients to make a romantic dinner, or getting sweet treats for your sweet. Represent offer ends February 16, 2025. Follow your heart to a close to today, or visit discover.com. Conditions apply.
Home is closer than you think when you save towards your dream home with the Homeowner Savings Plan, or HOSP, from CIBC Caribbean. With HOSP, you unlock preferential interest rates to earn more interest on your savings and pay less with a discounted mortgage rate. You can even borrow up to an additional US $5,000 or its equivalent to help you with your closing costs. Get home faster when you save the HOSP way with CIBC. It's Love 101 FM's 32nd anniversary, and of course, Love 101, the family station, has been bringing you powerful word programs, interesting features, and beautiful music for 32 years. Youth Connection will be sharing with you some of the great songs through the years in our feature 32 Top Gospel Songs of All Time. I'm sure there are hundreds, but we'll try and find 32 as Love 101 celebrates its 32nd anniversary. Listeners pick 8 hymns, 8 Jamaican, 8 contemporary, 8 black gospel. Youth Connection will be sharing with you some of the great songs through the years in our feature 32 Top Gospel Songs of All Time. So join us Saturday, February 15th.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jukal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answer today's question. What are your thoughts on Jamaican patois becoming an official language of Jamaica? Jukal?
All right, so we have some responses. The first one is from Wilson Rochester on Facebook. It says, or she says, I can't speak or read patois. If it becomes Jamaica's official language, I would have to go to school to learn patois. Cherry in Spanish Town says, it's high time our Jamaican language is entwined in our school curriculum. I agree that between parishes we speak differently. Patois is our language, unique and interesting. All language is very easy to speak, but a little difficult to read. They need to standardize patois and teach it in school. It's our official language, whether persons want to accept it or not. Patois is Jamaica. Somebody else says, I'm not seeing a name here. Let's see if I see Kim. Kim on WhatsApp says, no. Patois is not a standard language with common rules around wording, spelling, and phrasing. Formalizing it will remove its flavor that evolves with modern slangs and is slightly different across parishes. It does not help us to compete and interact in the global market where English is widely spoken, and it is important for our people to know how to speak it well. Furthermore, books written in patois are so difficult to read and does not feel authentic or natural. It can be our official dialect. Imagine us writing contractual agreements in patois. I find this initiative to be more symbolic than practical. Is this really necessary? Jamaica is already a strong cultural brand and identity. There's another comment on Facebook. It says, have you tried to read the Jamaican New Testament? It's a challenge. It is, Claudette. It is.
Yeah. Okay, interesting comments there. I want to thank all those who responded to the question. May the discourse and the debates continue. As we segue into the second watch, the President's Lifetime, and that's the U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award, is the highest honor bestowed by the President for volunteer service. And the Jamaican-born preacher, motivational speaker, certified master life coach, author, and mentor, the Reverend Marie Burbick, is a recipient. To talk about this wonderful achievement, we have joining us no other person than Reverend Burbick herself. Good morning and congrats to you.
Good morning. Good morning. So happy to be here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, and congrats again upon achieving this award.
Thank you so much.
Okay, apart from what was just read in the preamble, tell us, Reverend Burbick, who is Marie Burbick?
Marie Burbick is a St. Anne girl. I was born in a little place called Claremont in Southeast St. Anne, Jamaica. And I spent my early years in that part of the country. Then I came to Kingston and I became a journalist with the Jamaica Herald at 17 years old. At the time, Franklin McKnight was the head of the Herald. After that, I pursued a career in public relations and communications. And then I left Jamaica in 2018, came to the United States to be ordained. And the rest is history.
So you left Jamaica in 2018?
2018.
Why did you leave?
Okay, so I was actually called into ministry. And that is how I ended up leaving Jamaica, because my mom was a citizen of the United States. I had family members here. I was filed for and refused to come. I asked USCIS to cancel the application because I had no interest in being in the USA. But the trajectory of my life changed. I started working in ministry, and the Lord called me into ministry. And even then, I was fighting not to come into ministry. But by July 2018, everything changed, and I ended up in the United States being ordained as a pastor.
Interesting. Now, while you were still in Jamaica, you reportedly were a two-time Press Association of Jamaica Journalism awardee.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Okay, so the award for, I'm trying to remember exactly, I think it was agricultural reporting was, I think, 98. And then in 2008, I was the first journalist to be recognized for online journalism, excellence in online journalism. That award was introduced for the first time, I think, in 2008 and sponsored by Microsoft. I was the first recipient of that award.
Okay. So you are now in the US of A, and you heard, well, you're notified that you are the recipient of this prestigious award. Can you describe that moment for us when you heard?
You know, it's a very interesting thing, the way that all of this has unfolded, because as I speak to you this morning, I'm still researching the award myself. It all came as a surprise. I keep saying to people, everything in my life regarding, you know, ministry and so on is divine by design. None of it is because I pursued it out of a willingness to go, you know, and be a pastor or anything like that. So with regards to being nominated for this award, I was notified about 2 weeks before the actual presentation event in Washington, D.C. And it was when I was told that I had been nominated. At the time, I didn't know that I was going to get the Lifetime Achievement Award, because I was told there are different categories. There's a gold, there's a silver, there's a bronze. So I said, well, Lord, let me prepare myself and take whatever I get. It's an honor. And I didn't expect it. So when I was told that it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, honestly, I had to go and research it to get a better understanding of how this award is made, how they choose persons for this award. And I've just been blown away, completely blown away by the proceedings, you know, receiving, being nominated. It's just an honor.
Please tell us more about that research. What are the qualifications or criteria to receive such an award?
So this award, as I believe you would have mentioned, is actually the highest level of award offered by the president to a civilian for service in volunteerism. So persons who are selected for this award are persons who normally would have done extremely well in terms of making themselves available to transform the lives of others in their community, in their country. Your work would have had impact on the lives of many persons across, not just your country too sometimes, but across the world. And they will recognize persons in different areas or different fields, including humanitarianism, religion. You can be involved in politics. It could be a member of the diplomatic corps. It could also be in the area of education or philanthropy. So there are different fields from which people are pulled to be recognized for this award.
And what were you doing specifically that would have made you qualify for it?
Yes. Okay. So what they do when they reach out to you with regards to notifying you that you have been nominated, you are required to produce your bio, and they will go through your bio. And I believe the decision initially has been made, but they still need to go through your bio. So I remember sitting down and trying to put together a combined bio of all the things that I would have done, you know, throughout my life coming up. And it took me 6 hours to put everything together because it was a whole lot of work. And I believe that I was recognized for my work in ministry, the work that I would have done with women, empowering women, training women, mentoring women, and also the work we have done with persons who are marginalized, persons who may be homeless, etc. We have done a lot of feeding of the homeless, and we have been instrumental in communities working with women, in particular, single mothers.
Okay, we want to drill down into those aspects of your ministry shortly. We're up on a break. We'll be right back.
You gotta make your love flop. One dollar, or you one stop shop. Oh, someone, I've been trying to get it in the top. But how long time? Give the love when you want it. Every wine, steady beer, and talk. It's a drop of how you want stop.
In Jamaica, your rights are protected by our Constitution. From the right to education to freedom of expression, every citizen deserves respect and dignity. But remember, with rights come responsibilities. Let's uplift and respect each other and stand against injustice. Together, we can make Jamaica a better place for ourselves and future generations. Know your rights. Embrace your responsibilities. This message was brought to you by the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and this is the second watch. We are, examining the recipient of the U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award in the person of the Reverend Marie Burbick. Welcome again, Reverend Burbick.
Thank you so very much.
Great. Before the break, you told us about the ministries you're involved in, humanitarianism, and etc., etc. Can you now drill down, especially in regards to the ministry empowering women and mentoring them?
Yes. Okay, so our ministry is called SUPHER, S-U-P-H-E-R, and that is Sisters United for Prayer, Healing, Empowerment, and Restoration. This is a ministry that we started back in 2013, myself and the late Reverend Maria Azan and Pastor Marcia Wright. And this ministry was born out of a need we identified in the church. All of us were women in the church, and all of us were divorced or going through a divorce and had no support. So we decided we had to set up a group, to help ourselves. And this is how SUPHER was born. But because I had gone through so much in the whole process of divorce, a lot of court-related matters, custody-related matters, victimization in the court in Jamaica, and so on. We started to focus a lot on women who were going through divorce and women who had been through trauma and helping them to navigate their way through. So a lot of our work initially was centered on dealing with women who had been in domestic violence-related situations. We found quite a number of women, some in the church, who were still in those situations, afraid to come out because they did not have the necessary support. So we started to go into homes when the partners were not there. Like when the husband is not there, we would go into those homes and take the women away.
And that happened in the U.S.?
No, right there in Jamaica from 2013. Yes.
So in the U.S., was there a continuation of that ministry?
Yes, the ministry continues in the United States, but the difference here is that they are not lapse in the system when it comes to domestic violence or violence against women. So you will find that if somebody slips up here in the United States, you are going to pay the penalty and pay it very quickly. Unlike in Jamaica, where you may be able to get away with it, they don't play with you here in the US. So what we have found is that our work in terms of being on the ground and doing what we were doing in Jamaica to go in and rescue women was not necessary here because the system is far more effective. So our work has centered more on empowering women. We have done a lot of training with women, training them to be start their own businesses, etc. The last set of training we did was in social media management, because what we wanted was for women to be able to have an idea and the necessary skills in social media management to start businesses of their own.
Yeah, and you're a minister of religion. How has that, your being a pastor, impacted and influenced that particular ministry that you now have?
I believe it has had a very profound effect because that's the genesis of it, really. Persons were attracted to the ministry because of my own story. persons who follow my ministry, they know my testimony. And I found that my testimony has pulled a lot of women into the church. A lot of women, their faith has been restored. They have been inspired. So you will find, if you are a part of this ministry, that a significant number of the women in this ministry are women who you would refer to as coming from a situation of brokenness to restoration. So there's a direct link.
You said that it's coming from your experience. What was your experience?
Well, my experience in Jamaica, I went through a very tumultuous divorce, as I would have mentioned before. And at the time, I was working with a public institution, and I was going through a terrible, terrible divorce. There was a lot of fighting in the court. There was a battle for custody of my children. At one point, I was locked up in Spanish Town, or detained, as you would put it. And the whole situation was very messy because there was a lot of underhanded activity that was taking place in the family court. In my case, at one point, an order was issued, a restraining order was issued against me, and my children were taken away from me behind my back. And when the investigation was done, a story thankfully was published by the Observer, which drew national attention to the matter. And when the story came out in the Observer, there was a lot of movement within the government and the court system to see what had happened in my case. And it was discovered that the order that was issued against me was illegal. So there was a lot of underhandedness going on in the system there.
Wow. You have been healed of all of that, I take it?
Yes, I have to give God thanks, because had I not been healed, I couldn't talk about it. There was a time when, it was so traumatic for me that I could not really talk about it and not become angry. But I'm at a good place today, and that is why I'm able to inspire the women who follow this ministry and to let them know that you can come from brokenness to be restored and do the same thing that I'm doing today. Heal and lead and mentor other women.
The ceremony for the presentation of the award, I'm assuming there was a ceremony. Could you just give us a brief idea of how that flowed? What happened?
So there were 3 days of activities in Washington, D.C. We attended 2, January 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Now, what they did, they had several activities. One of them was a ball and concert, and we had international singers such as Sinach coming in, and world leaders, members of the diplomatic corps, and so on. That was the first night. And then on the second night, that was a special function for the presentation of the President's Lifetime Achievement Awards. And I want to use this opportunity to say yet again that I'm not the only one who received that award. Our friend Papa San also received a Lifetime Achievement Award. He got his on the 20th of January, the night of the 20th. And what is most interesting also is that there is a list of people who would have gotten awards. Some received the award with the signature of President Biden. And of course, those that came in after the 20th would have received their award with the signature of the incoming president, President Trump.
Interesting. So the present president is not the one who actually handed you the award?
No, the president himself did not hand us the award. They're representatives. What happens with awards like these is that you have organizations which are like liaisons to the White House. So they are the ones who will organize the function at which you receive your medals. All your medals come from the White House, your certificate, everything comes signed by the president. But it does not necessarily mean the president himself is handing that award to you on the night in particular.
What has this achievement done for Marie Berbick?
To be honest, that it has humbled me even more. It has humbled me because I'm still at a place where I'm trying to process. With all that I have done, I never went out of my way, Dr. Toussaint, to be recognized for it. I just did it because this is my passion and this is an assignment from God. And in doing the work without looking to be recognized, one of the greatest recognitions that I could never have thought of has come to me. So I'm just humbled.
And going forward, if the Jamaican saying about encouragement sweetens labor.
Yes.
This ought to have been an encouraging moment for you.
Yes.
Going forward, what can we expect from Marie Berbick?
Okay, well, I'm very focused on growing our ministry, MBMI. I'm very focused also on expanding the services that we offer through SUFER. So I believe that having received this award, I've seen already where there's a different level of interest in our work. And we can't do work without the funding. So at this time, I know, and I'm looking forward to us receiving the funding to do more that we want to do for women, more that we want to do in the communities, because our focus has extended not only from working with women, but also working with at-risk youth and marginalized people in the communities. So I'm looking forward to getting more support in those areas so we can be even more effective.
Right. And perhaps I'm being facetious here, but was there any hint of any linkage with the presidency going forward in terms of advice, in terms of forming programs, organizations that could evolve from your humanitarian deeds over the years? Anything like that was mentioned?
Okay, what I've seen so far is a greater level of interest in us and in our work. When you go to an event like that and you're presented with a Lifetime Achievement Award, you are in the company of world leaders, you're in the company of ambassadors and diplomats. We have had very good conversations with a lot of those persons from different countries. They're interested to know more about what we do and how we can work together. So definitely I see the doors opening for greater partnership, and I know that we're going to be even more effective because we're getting the support of people across the world.
You say the doors opening.
Yes.
Tell us about one of those doors. What do you see happening? Yeah.
All right. So far, we have received invitations to participate in different activities here in the United States and outside of the US later this year. Leadership conferences that are coming up, we have received invitations. Also, initially, we had planned to be in Africa, invitations that come from Nigeria, from Zambia, from Kenya, etc. And now, not just for ministry, but also for humanitarian work and partnerships in those countries.
Yes. And I don't know if you had mentioned it, I perhaps forgot to ask, but how's all this financed?
I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked, because believe it or not, it's regular people out there who keep the ball rolling for us. You have some people who are just committed to making sure that the work of the ministries get done. On a monthly basis, you have some women who take care of the expenses of the ministry. We have never been funded by a particular organization or association. All of our support has come from regular women who are so grateful for the work we have done that has helped to transform their lives. So they come and they give back.
And you still have similar ministries operating in Jamaica?
SUFA Ministry, we just launched it in Jamaica. Even though it started there in 2013, it was not formally launched. So last year we were in Jamaica. We formally launched the SUFA Ministry down there. And of course, we started out with a scholarship that we are offering, a US $1,000 scholarship. The first recipient got hers in, I think, July last year. She's from Glowell Prep. She's now in high school. What we have done is to identify a student at that particular school who has done the PEP exams, is preparing for high school, but does not have the necessary financial resources. So we step in with that scholarship to help them offset those expenses.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we are down now to the wire in terms of our interview and discussion. What do you say now to persons listening who have something in mind? They have, they always had this vision, or whatever you want to call it, of starting something to help humanity. What would you say to them going forward?
Go right ahead and do what you are passionate about doing. Do not focus on trying to start big. Start small. What matters is the impact you're going to have on people's lives. I started out very small. I started out because I had a passion for it and genuinely wanted to help. So when you want to do these things, please just make sure you examine your heart, examine your motive. Why am I doing this? Is this something I really want to do? Is it because I really want to transform lives? And if you can say yes to those questions that you ask yourself, the Lord will help you to do the rest. Go for it. Start small, trust in the Lord, reach out to people, network, and be genuine with what you are doing. I believe
Well
that's
said.
the strategy that got me to where I am today.
Well said, Reverend Burbick Bailey. Thanks so much for joining us. Congrats again and keep up the good work.
Thank you. You're so welcome.
Thanks. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow when we'll continue to set the stage for a discussion of topical and controversial issues. For information or get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-9596-7. This, of course, has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. I'm Dylan Toussaint, hand you back to Love in the Morning.